You don't overthink, you predict. And most of your predictions have already decided how your relationships will end before they even begin. That quiet spiral you fall into at night, replaying conversations, imagining what someone meant, preparing for what might go wrong, it feels like anxiety. It feels like loss of control. But it isn't. It's control at its most obsessive level. Your brain isn't wandering. It's calculating. It's scanning. It's preparing for something it believes is inevitable. And there's a reason this keeps happening, and it's not what you think. Because if this were just overthinking, it would be random. It would be chaotic. But it's not. It follows a pattern, a very specific one. You don't imagine every possible future. You imagine one type of future, the one where something goes wrong, the one where someone pulls away, the one where you're left trying to understand what changed. That's not imagination, that's threat prediction. Your nervous system is not designed to keep you happy, it's designed to keep you safe. And somewhere in your past, your brain learned a very specific rule. Connection is unstable. Attention disappears, people leave. And once that rule is encoded, your threat perception circuitry begins doing something very precise. It starts preparing you in advance. This is called anticipatory rejection processing. It's not a conscious choice, it's a conditioned response. Your brain simulates negative outcomes before they happen, not because it enjoys suffering, but because it believes early pain is easier to survive than unexpected pain. In simple terms, your mind would rather hurt you now than let someone else hurt you later. So you scan tone shifts, you analyze pauses, you replay words, you notice distance before it's even real. And the more you do this, the more your brain reinforces a loop, an avoidance reinforcement loop, where prediction becomes protection and protection becomes identity. This is where it starts to feel like you. You think this is your personality, that you're just someone who thinks too much. But what's actually happening is identity preservation bias. Your brain is maintaining a version of you that is always prepared, always guarded, always slightly ahead of the emotional damage. Because if you can see it coming, it won't destroy you. But there's a contradiction hidden inside this system, and most people never notice it. The more you try to predict rejection, the more your behavior subtly shifts in ways that create distance. Not intentionally, not consciously, but inevitably. You hesitate more, you trust less, you hold back parts of yourself. And people feel that, not as rejection, but as absence. And absence changes how people respond. This is where it turns. What you call overthinking is actually shaping the outcome you're trying to avoid. John Bowlby, the psychologist who developed attachment theory, described how early relational experiences form internal working models, mental templates of how relationships function. If your template says people leave, your brain doesn't just expect it, it organizes your perception and behavior around it. You don't just see the world differently, you participate in it differently. And this is where it becomes self-sabotage. Because now your brain is doing two things at once. On the surface, you're trying to connect. You want closeness. You want consistency. But underneath, your nervous system is activating defense patterns, micro-withdrawals, emotional hesitation, subtle testing. It's like trying to hold someone's hand while slowly pulling yours away at the same time. And they feel that tension, even if they can't explain it. So your brain watches closely, waiting for confirmation, interpreting every small change as proof. And when something eventually shifts, even slightly, it locks onto it. There it is, I knew it. But what you don't see is how early the process started, how the outcome was being shaped long before anything actually went wrong. Your mind isn't reacting to rejection, it's rehearsing it. Imagine your brain like a fire alarm system that was trained in a building that used to burn down often.
Even when you move into a safer environment, the alarm doesn't reset. It still goes off at the smallest hint of smoke. Steam from a shower feels like danger. Warmth feels like threat. So you live in a constant state of readiness. That's what this is. Not weakness, not overthinking, conditioning. But conditioning doesn't stay contained. It spreads. It starts in your thoughts, then moves into your behavior, then into your relationships, and eventually into your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who is always on the edge of being left, and that belief changes how you show up everywhere. This is the part no one warns you about. The system that was built to protect you doesn't know when to stop, so it keeps going. It doesn't just prepare you for rejection, it starts filtering out safety. It ignores consistency, it downplays reassurance, because accepting safety would require vulnerability, and vulnerability in your system is still coded as risk. So even when nothing is wrong, something feels off, and you trust that feeling, because it's familiar. But familiar doesn't mean accurate. Here's where the shift becomes uncomfortable. Your brain is not trying to find the truth, it's trying to confirm a pattern. And if the pattern is rejection, then anything that doesn't fit that pattern feels suspicious. So you question it, you doubt it, you distance from it, until eventually the only outcomes that feel believable are the ones that hurt. This is the hidden cost. Not just anxiety, not just mental exhaustion, but a gradual narrowing of what you allow yourself to experience. You don't just prepare for rejection, you eliminate the possibility of being surprised by something good, because hope in your system is more dangerous than disappointment. And this is where the real damage happens, not when someone leaves, but when you stop allowing them to fully arrive, because your brain is already halfway out, already preparing, already adjusting, already protecting. If this continues, the pattern becomes stable, predictable, reinforced. You enter relationships already carrying the ending inside you. And over time, that ending becomes more consistent, not because people are always the same, but because your system is. And the longer this runs, the harder it becomes to recognize the difference between intuition and conditioning. Everything feels like a signal. Everything feels like a warning. Everything feels like it means something. But most of it doesn't. It just feels that way because your brain learned to survive by assuming the worst. And now it doesn't know how to stop. So here's the truth that most people resist. You are not overthinking. You are protecting yourself from a version of pain your brain believes is guaranteed. That's the loop. That's the reason it keeps happening. And it doesn't resolve by thinking more, because thinking is the system. The resolution begins when you realize that not every signal is real, and not every feeling is a prediction. Some of them are echoes, leftover responses, from a time when you actually did need to be this alert. But you're still running the same program, in a different environment, with different people, and expecting a different result. The moment you start seeing that distinction between what's happening now and what your brain is preparing for, something shifts. Not immediately, not completely, but enough to create space. And in that space, something unfamiliar appears. Uncertainty. Not the kind that triggers fear, the kind that allows possibility. That's the part your brain hasn't learned yet. And until it does, this pattern will keep trying to close that space as quickly as possible. So the next time your mind starts building scenarios, don't rush to believe them. Notice the direction they're going. Notice the outcome they're predicting. And ask yourself something simple. Is this happening or is this familiar? Because that question interrupts the loop. And once you interrupt it, even slightly, you're no longer fully inside it. And if you're not fully inside it, you can start to see it. And once you can see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Which means the next time it happens, it won't feel exactly the same. And that difference is where everything begins to change. Not all at once, but enough to make you question what else your brain has been preparing you for that hasn't actually happened yet. And if you follow that line of thought far enough in, you'll start to notice something else. There are patterns behind your patterns, and you haven't reached the deepest one yet.